You are listening to the Lone Star Community Radio on 104.5 KCZWLP Conroe and 106.1 KZCCLP Conroe and worldwide on irlonestar.com.
And welcome to the Legal Connection with Tony and Cheryl. Tony and I are here on 104.5 and 106.1 FM every Tuesday from 12 to 1. And we are two Texas licensed attorneys. And we're here to talk to you about legal issues, answer your questions, and questions that we hear from our clients and questions that we get on Facebook. And we get
questions we just think up on our own.
That's right. That arise from different legal situations and all of that.
Well, sometimes a dream.
That's right. Well, Tony, I'm excited about our case today, our show today. It's about legal issues in Texas divorce courts that are unjustly detrimental to women or detrimental to women. And there's a lot of concern. There's a lot of public. I get a lot of questions about...
not just women, unjustly detrimental to one of the spouses.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's usually the spouse that has control over the finances.
That's right.
That is being more of a bully when everything goes south.
Right.
And what I've discovered in many of these sort of divorces where there are, when there's a lot of money involved, a lot of assets involved, is that if the marriage has lasted long enough, and usually it's over 10 years, these people, it usually is, they're compatible. But when it starts to go south, they turn into spoiled brats. And I'm not saying that against my clients or with my clients.
Party, right.
But truly, they're so used to having money that and then somebody starts to exercise, just like in anything, they start exercising control, then it turns into just this, it almost seems juvenile, but at the same time, it's really not. You've got to legally assert your rights, regardless of which party you are, on which side of the fence you're on, to make sure that it goes well, because this is going to affect, the results is going to affect someone's both lives, actually, and usually the kids too, in a large way. So you can't say, oh, we're just fighting. It's more like you really have to focus on, you don't want to put this in the back burner in the closet. You really got to focus on the claims and what the facts are to support those claims and go forward and take it extremely seriously. And that's why divorce attorneys make a lot of money.
That's so true.
Because they're taking on all your problems.
Exactly. And very convoluted. Okay, well, there's a case that's going on right now. This is a very common scenario, though. And so I was asked to discuss this. Of course, this is all confidential, no names or anything like that. But there's a case going on where basically the background is that this couple met in approximately 1999. They began to date, and they dated for about 5 years. She was
I'd be mad if I was the one wanting to get married after 5 years.
Mm-hmm. We'll just call her Sue, and we'll call him Bob. Those are not their names, though. She was a single mother of 2 children. He was 20 years her senior. She was the owner of a successful business in a different state. And and he was a successful businessman, and he was a manager of 10 properties that he owned.
Mm-hmm.
So after they dated for about 5 years, they decided to get married, and he convinced her to sell her business there in the other state and move to Houston, right? So during this time, she and he worked together in the businesses. He had a business. She had sold her business. I don't want to spend too much time.
Yeah,
on
was
the
she helping
facts.
was she helping him with his business, or was she just enjoying the married life with her spouse?
No, she was helping him with the
Okay.
business. So her business was Company One, and then she sold that, and then she began to work with
What'd
him.
she do with her proceeds? Did she reinvest them, or?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
No, she did reinvest them. She reinvested them in the business dealings for Company Two that was owned by him. So
Okay.
Company Two,
Reimbursement. That's what I wanted to find out.
yeah, it's important.
Did she help him with his company to make it grow?
Right. She So both of them began to travel and work on Company Two. Their only source of income were the two business entities, and these paid all their personal and living
When you say two
expenses.
business entities, you said he had a number of properties. Were those split between two different businesses, or was one all property and another one was something else?
Well, she had a business that she sold,
Uh huh.
and then he had some 10 properties.
Okay, so when you say two business entities, I'm just trying to be a lawyer
Mm-hmm.
here, like I'm
Mm-hmm.
interviewing you.
Mm-hmm.
Were there two business entities that he was now running, or there was only the one because she sold hers?
It was Company Two that they were both running.
Okay,
They were, let's see, the property management business and the company that he owned.
okay,
So he had a property management business that was
okay. So
over
there is two
10.
entities. All right, got it.
Yes. All right. So that was the only source of their income. By 2004, they were married and continued working as partners. Sue, was involved in all aspects of the business, including buying, letting, and selling the properties. So
Mhm.
she was heavily involved.
Mm-hmm.
In 2005, Company Two, 100% owned by Bob,
Mm-hmm.
was closed and a new company was formed, 51% by Sue and
What year
40,
was that?
2005.
Okay.
So let's see, and I think that's the year that they got married. They got married in 2004, I believe. So yeah. Um, so Company Three was formed. It was owned 51% by Sue and 49% by Bob.
Hmm.
And they formed it that way to take advantage of the tax incentives
Minority.
given to
For women.
minority
Uh-huh.
women-owned companies. Okay. So then they had a daughter. They began to experience marital problems. He was running around and he was out of the country a
Uh-huh.
lot and all that kind of stuff. She continued to run the businesses and she spent a lot of time doing that because
Uh-huh.
he was out of the country.
Uh-huh.
Her role increased. Let's see, they decided that they wanted to recommit, and or Bob decided in 2008 he wanted to recommit.
And what was the catalyst for that? Any idea?
I
Like her
think,
wanting to leave?
yeah. I mean, she didn't file for divorce, not yet.
Uh-huh.
This
Okay.
this
That's
person
usually
is-
what starts a recommitment process. It's usually not, oh, let's just, have another wedding. It's usually because something's going south.
Mhm.
And the first thing that comes to mind is Rod Stewart and Rachel Hunter. They had that big second ceremony and all that stuff. And then immediately, split up and she went after a bunch of, because whenever I see I mean, maybe not always, maybe I'm just being
A
a
lawyer.
terrible pessimist here. But when I see somebody saying, let's have a second wedding, and it's usually, within 10 years of the marriage, I'm like, who would do
Right.
that?
Well, not yet. She hadn't filed for divorce yet.
Right,
Now,
okay.
she's filed for divorce twice. Okay. But in 2008,
Against him.
yeah, but not in
Okay.
2008.
Okay.
Yes, she's filed against him, but she did that anyway.
Man, she went so far as to file.
We'll get to
Not
that.
just the threat.
Well, yeah, but it's a terrible story. Okay, in 2008, it was decided to convert the property management proprietorship into a corporate LLC owned 50-50.
uh-huh.
So that was 2008.
Hmm.
So they'd been married, several years, and that became
That's
company.
weird. They didn't take advantage of the 51% thing. Oh,
They decided to convert it to an LLC.
okay.
I think the 5149 was
Goes
not
to a
an
different
LLC.
entity. Okay.
Right. The company was formed. Bob and Sue started receiving shares for the committed capitalization of Bob's 10 properties and one jointly owned property, plus all their collective cash available.
Mhm.
All properties were deeded in the name of Company 4
Mhm.
and all deeds registered in the appropriate. So everything was done right. Company 4 flourished. Oh,
Mhm.
this is important for our listeners. Sue's understanding of their unequal contribution because, he had a lot more than she
Right.
did. He had the 10 properties and all
Uh-huh.
that. Everything that they owned supposedly was deeded to this Company 4.
Mhm.
Sue's understanding was that her portion was different, but what he contributed was gifted by Bob so that they could be equal in real business.
Well, that's
partners.
what she says. I mean, I know this is supposed to be toward the women, but from a strictly legal standpoint, I'm like,
Well, that's a legal argument, though. I mean, if it is your understanding that it was gifted.
Well, I mean,
And
it's
you
a
can
good legal
prove it.
argument if there's no other corporate documents and his separate property has now been deeded without any other references on the deed that there was a payment or anything that went back and forth. It was a gift if there wasn't any other. What is the terminology I'm looking for? I've been working on too many cases. When they add that verbiage that says that it's his sole and separate property. I mean, they'd have to have said something in there for him to maintain its separate property character. And
In order to have that
and it's
argument
his
that
burden
it
of
was
proof to
gifted.
prove that it wasn't a gift.
That's right.
Happens quite a bit.
Yeah. And so what you're saying, I mean, it's a good point, is that people always
She's
think
in a good place if he deeded his separate property into something they both owned together
That's right.
and nothing was said. That's a gift.
Okay. All right. So Company 4 flourishes over the years, grew into owning 26 properties in 3 states, with the value of the original properties much higher than when Company 4 was formed. So their businesses grew. They started to
What kind of properties are we talking about here? Any idea?
land,
Houses, land? Okay.
undeveloped properties that were turned into.
There's not a lot of maintenance on undeveloped property. You're just cutting lawn and paying some taxes and stuff.
Right. And I think.
So I'm wondering how much work she actually did on that. She get on the tractor. And,
Well, no, they had properties that were actually developed
okay.
that were shopping centers and shopping strips, and she
Okay,
actually
got it.
was part of leasing.
I was thinking
those
Green
properties.
Acres, and you have, she's in her gown and the tractor.
No, and it's valuable property too. There's a lot of it out in
Really?
Katy and all of that. So Company 3 was closed in 2012,
Mhm.
and all inventory and assets moved to a storage facility. Now, Bob, because they had problems in 2008, he's becoming very controlling with the finances. She doesn't even have a credit card. She's doing all this work, but she doesn't even have a credit card. She's got a credit card
That's weird.
that she can use as a dependent. She
Weird.
nevertheless worked hard managing the properties, undertaking
Wait a
them.
minute. They've been married for this long and they don't have a joint credit card?
She was a dependent on his credit card. But see,
Huh.
that's a problem. Well, let me just go over
Okay,
these
okay,
and
go
then
ahead.
let's talk about that, because
Mhm.
I think she should have thrown a fit then.
Well, maybe she was and we don't know it. We don't have those facts.
Okay. She was undertaking the marketing, handling tenant issues, and supervising all construction and renovation projects.
Okay.
So these were developed properties
Uh-huh.
too. The marriage was still experiencing difficulties because he was continuing to carry on with other people and all of
Uh-huh.
that. So by 2012, they decided they were going to relocate to another state, and then she filed for divorce.
Uh-huh.
He
Where are they now? I
I
mean, in your scenario, not the real people, just a different state. They're not in Texas.
they're not in Texas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they moved to a different state.
We filed for divorce in Texas?
No, they filed for divorce in the different state.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah, which is where she's from,
Okay, got it.
I believe,
All right.
is my
I
understanding.
mean, you can file for divorce in Texas if you didn't live here, if you claimed your residence here. I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen it happen. So
Yeah. So the husband bitterly contested the divorce, and then he began to file all this stuff, and she had children, and they were given a jointly owned property in the other state to live in separately during the divorce, both parties. Even though she was an equal partner and had signing authority, he
Mhm.
had control over the company monies, so he cut her off except for court-ordered support payments. He effectively ran the company into the ground.
Yeah, so they must have had some legal orders that prevented her from selling the property, or some kind of temporary restraining order. Would that be?
Well,
temporary injunction?
he was able through an interim temporary order hearing to secure sole control of Company 4. So this is the this is the problem that she's
Where did that come
experienced.
from?
Yeah, well, it happened to her again here. The
Yeah, but
same
and that
thing.
was the problem. She should have appealed that. I mean, that right there is where the I guess the flow of money stopped because he got control with that order.
That's what
I would have
happened,
been
Tony.
reconsidering, but within the same. I haven't seen the order. Perhaps she got some sort of an allowance or something from it.
Well, okay, this is in the 2012 attempt at divorce. She got a property that she could live in,
Uh-huh.
and he had I believe it was a separate property that he lived in, but he was able to get control of the business. And then as a result of that, he began to run the business in the ground. He cut her off as an equal partner and had control of the company monies. So he cut Sue off except for court-ordered support payments. So she was getting support
Mhm.
payments. He effectively ran the company into the ground, understated the income and value available, but helped himself to legal fees while denying her access to company money. For
But he
her
didn't really
legal
run it
fees.
into the ground. He ran it on paper into the ground. Obviously, he was moving the assets around because
Right.
he was an astute businessman, probably, unless he inherited all the property.
No, I don't believe he did.
Okay, so this was an intentional for this particular entity to be run into the ground.
hmm And he had enough money to pay his attorneys, but she had no money to
Mhm.
hire any attorneys. The proceedings were very acrimonious with many distracted filings. Finally, in the end of this, by 2015, she felt like she had no choice but to agree to a reconciliation and move back to Texas. in October of 2015. She had used all of the money that she had inherited because
So
she
he didn't
ha-
want the divorce because he actually wanted to be with her?
Yes, I know.
That doesn't make
Isn't
any
love
sense to
grand?
me.
Huh?
I mean, it's hard for me to place the characters in this J.R. Ewing scenario because I guess J.R. Ewing might want Sue Ellen. I mean, if we want to use those terms, would want her back,
Or
but
just didn't want anyone
it
else to
certainly
have them.
doesn't sound like love.
Well, no. I mean,
I
he's
mean,
been
I'm the attorney and the girl in me are kind of going, well, I'm kind of confused about what's going on here without actually seeing this play out. But here's a control freak guy that didn't want her to leave, apparently. So he took her ability to leave away, and now they've reconciled. Now, personally, there would be under no circumstance that I would ever reconcile under any of those conditions. I would just go find,
go find.
I would go find somebody else to take care of me.
Okay, listen, we're
I
gonna
mean,
take
if I didn't have anybody to take care of me and I had no way of living, I would make it so that I could live and move on, is what I'm saying.
right. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to continue with the story of Bob and Sue.
For those of you who like your partners, your gumbo, and your music salty, well, we're here to help with the music. Julian Shea here, host of Lone Star Country Nights Thursday, your weekly dose of roots and Americana and all the music that makes this part of the country special. We stir in Western swing, honky-tonk, Zydeco, Texas blues, outlaw country, and put a pinch of red dirt, and then we smoke it over a slow fire. Then listen to the results Thursday nights on Conroe's 104.5 and 106.1 and worldwide at irlonestar.com.
Statistics show that 1 out of every 6 Texans struggles with food insecurity and hunger. And many people don't eat enough fruits and vegetables every day. The Better Living for Texans program is here to help you learn how to make healthy menu choices, save money at the grocery store, prepare quick and delicious meals, get more good nutrition in your day, and get more physical activity. Classes are fun, friendly, interactive, and free, and taught in English and Spanish. We are Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, helping Texans make their lives better.
Our talk shows and music shows are looking for sponsors. Want to expand your brand awareness? Reach the hyper-local audience in Montgomery County? Lone Star Community Radio sponsorships accomplish this. Want to see our stats and rates? Check out irlonestar.com/sponsor for more information. Or call in and leave us a message at 936-647-3776. Lone Star Community Radio is looking for those who are interested in hosting their own talk show with monthly and weekly slots available on Conroe's FM 104.5 and 106.1 and on irlonestar.com. Start your own podcast, create your first YouTube channel, and be on TV. Contact Lone Star Community Radio online at irlonestar.com or call the station message line at 936-647-3776.
Welcome back to the Legal Connection with Tony and Cheryl. Tony and I are here today talking about divorce in Texas. And we're talking about it from a woman's perspective or from a perspective of the person that doesn't have control of the money.
And I'm going to interject really quick here, even though I know that I need to get on to the conventional fact pattern, because today I brought my Aggie hat.
Yeah.
Because we had such an amazing game this weekend. We beat LSU, and I'm from Baton Rouge, so I was, kind of split a little bit because that's my heritage.
Mhm.
But 7 overtimes. That was a tie for the longest number of overtimes in FBS
That is
history.
crazy.
And it was the highest scoring game ever in NCAA history. It was 72-74. It was an amazing game. So I am promoting my Aggies today. And I think and the reason I'm bringing this up is because when I hear situations like this woman and this man that are having discord, I think they just should go to an Aggie game.
Like you do.
You
are
kiss
so
after
horse.
every goal, every score.
Uh-huh.
They would be romantically involved again after the 72-74. Okay. Just saying that this
Okay.
might be what they need.
Okay. all
But I
right.
will just add
If
this.
you're listening, guys,
Take your
Take that to
significant
heart.
over to an Aggie game because they don't tend to get really serious until they're getting ready to lose, and then the last second they score, and then then you're scoring and kissing the whole time. It's amazing. And but what you were saying before we went on break is that this woman went back to her husband out of a sort of a need just to survive. And and our dialogue over the break basically was, I could be destitute in the soup kitchen line, and under no circumstances would I go back to somebody that had bullied me and stuff from me. And I say that with some experience. I mean, you can try for so long before you lose all your self-esteem and you don't even feel like a person anymore. You're just like, my life is over. I'm doing this for my kids. No, you should never get to that. That's when your friend reaches to the phone, takes you by the collar and shakes you and says, get to church, go to mass, snap out of it. You're worth more than this. Do not settle for this, and refile that divorce and go on and fight for your rights. Okay, and now we're just telling you that's what you need to do.
Well, I just want to say that she says that she ran out of funds to continue her divorce action. She was also funding the divorce action herself. So what would you say in that situation to someone who had
And we have experienced that with our own clients
I know.
over and over. We've had
access to no funds?
where they've been starved out and there's no money and they can't pay the rent and the electricity's being turned off and they have all their kids that are used to living pretty well and suddenly they're basically like orphans and homeless. But
and that's what's happened to her this time.
Yeah. And so what do you do when there's no money coming? Well, the first thing all my clients tell me that all come from these, and they're living in these mansions but have no
They're
income to
house poor,
maintain it.
right?
And you're just like, you're stunned because they're also kind of crazy because they're used to living high on the hog and they're going to the Houstonian and they're still doing things with the money when it does come in to kind of get like happy. It's like, I'm going to get my nails done. I'm going to go do this. And instead of using the money and, maybe reinvesting, they're not thinking clearly because they've been sort of like through a war. This is like serious and it's mentally debilitating to them.
Right.
But in those situations, my clients have come to me and they've asked, can I get temporary support, have him pay the leave? Because that is easier said than done. You go to a court and say, Judge, can you pay for, he's got all the assets. Judge, will you pay for the attorney fees? Yes. And I've got a case right here, the one that is my prototype for all women who don't have control over the money and men that had made it situation is the Michael Brown divorce that just went on forever. And I have it in front of me. And I think it's a good one for all women that go through this that need sort of a, what do I do? This is a good one to go to. She fought like a banshee to make sure that he didn't hide all this income, which he was doing.
Right.
And she had a lot of assets she was selling and stuff, watches and jewelry and stuff he'd given along the way. But she had to fight this thing. And she ultimately did succeed because he kept getting thrown in jail for breaching orders where he wasn't supposed to be dumping the assets of these companies or using it or taking it and doing what men do because they're mad. I mean,
she must have had assets to funds to get an attorney.
She did. The attorneys also that she hired, and she had a slew of them, a plethora, a gaggle. I mean, she just had so many attorneys because they knew that they were going to be able to convince this judge because they contributed to her campaign or whatever the case may be. They were able to convince this judge to allocate funds for attorney's fees for her. But that's not easily done.
No.
You've got to align with the right attorney, with the right judge at the right time and have the right facts. And you can't be at a destitute position because attorneys usually want a retainer when you talk to them. If you're not walking in there with your 6-carat diamond ring and putting it in their vault, then they're probably not going to listen to you. But it can be done and should be done, and don't give up. If you have no money and you're going to find somebody like us, because I've done it so many times, where you step into it and you're like, okay, I'm going to, as an attorney, help this woman who's in a desperate situation.
Right.
Because for one thing, I can see that at the end of the day, there is money to be had and I'm going to be paid. I'm just going to have to front it for a while.
And I'll know in the interim that I'm doing the right thing.
Right. Helping her, not because you're trying to get money as an attorney,
right?
But as a woman, nobody should be stepped on by, it's a David and Goliath story. You should not be stepped on by somebody who can control the funds just because he won round one, getting the order in his favor. And we don't have all the facts, but based on what you've told me, she shouldn't be set up that she can't go another 9 rounds and actually win.
Yeah, and it's.
I hope it's not 9 rounds, but a lot of times it is.
It's funds. I mean, these attorneys. Okay, so let's get to the second one. So now the business is that they're worth $15 million, and over a period of time, they become worth $20 million.
Ooh, nice. I'd be taking this case.
Yeah, well, she ran out of money, so maybe you could take.
She did not run. She ran out of cash.
Him.
She did not run out of assets.
Well, but see, Tony, finding an attorney that will represent her, I mean, what you're talking about, don't give up, don't give
I know
up, don't give
very
up.
few attorneys, even the big wigs, that won't look at your asset base or his asset base and go, yeah, I think I can do this. Bring me some of your jewelry. I'll put it in my vault. I mean, that's
Okay,
usually
ladies,
not
listen to
that's
that.
usually not what you normally would think of as your retainer, but desperate actions in desperate times.
Right.
And it's not as though, unless this woman was a drug addict and was lying,
Yeah,
um,
she wasn't.
and there was a lot of things that didn't show up with what she was saying. Certainly, as an attorney, you're going to be able to get your payout eventually. You're going to get paid for your service, it's not a payout. And we've had shows on this before where the attorneys take complete and total advantage of the women, presenting their case because they see there's so many assets to be split with them as the
Right,
attorney, as though
right.
they're a party in this action.
Mhm.
And then right before you go to court, they say, I'm not going to go unless you give me so much more of a retainer
And
or
see,
whatever.
that's what when this woman filed for divorce again,
Mhm.
I believe it was at the beginning of this year. That's exactly what has happened.
Yeah, but there's a frustration level with the attorney because if you know that there's money coming in through their spousal support or money, and the attorney can see that they're going to the Houstonian and they're taking a ski trip, which is what I've seen, and you're not paying your attorney or you're not saving for your retainer, but you're doing these other things because you need some relief and some happiness, go to mass, save your money, show your attorney that you mean business, and then you're not going to run into that problem. But I can understand that maybe these people are going to attorneys that aren't accepting jewelry as a retainer. But if you keep knocking on enough doors, you're going to find somebody who will help you.
Maybe.
A good one too.
Okay. And so she just found out over the course of, they're going to reconcile and things are going to get better. And
And
all
maybe
that
we're not getting the
stuff.
whole story. Maybe she really did love this man and she thought maybe he's changed his ways.
Maybe. Her company for grew in value. It's worth $20 million. Now she finds out that in the course of the business dealings regarding the proposed shopping center project,
Mhm.
she discovered that several covert activities had been undertaken by Bob, unbeknownst to her,
Mhm.
starting with the divorce in the other state filing in 2012
Mhm.
until their return to Texas and even afterwards. So
Mhm.
he's supposed to get better. Then they move back to Texas, and then she finds him
And she finds out he's lying, which is when that breach of trust hits, it's the most important thing in any relationship.
Mhm.
And then you don't trust them anymore, and then you're fighting again. But
That's exactly right.
that's why I say go to church.
So, but
Together.
these are the economic situations. Property deeds were being transferred from company 4 back into his own personal name.
Mhm.
So he formed this corporation in both of their names,
Well,
and then he started
oh.
depleting
But
the
wait a
assets.
minute. He had control over the company, so he was now transferring the properties into his own separate.
Mhm.
Okay.
Corporate documents were being forged with her signatures, allowing
Well, that's
him
good
to
for
do
her.
that.
She can prove it.
Yeah.
Handwriting
Proceeds
analysis.
from the sale of property since the first divorce filing were removed for unknown purposes. He had authorized Company 4 to loan money to related companies and his family members. So he was just basically
So my question is, when they got
self-dealing.
back together, did she put down her foot and say, these are a few things that need to happen? Apparently she didn't. She's like, oh, I love you. Let's get back together again and things are going to be wonderful.
Well, maybe not. It wasn't I love you. Maybe it wasn't I love you. Maybe it was, okay, I understand. I really don't feel like I have any other option.
Well, these women have not watched enough Snapped and murder mysteries. The women always gets the guy back and then kills him for the insurance money.
Yeah,
They
well,
always do.
these women, a lot of them
Maybe
are
they're more-
Christians and they feel like it would be wrong to do that.
Murder's
Okay.
not a
And
good
so then
thing.
she finds this guy's opening personal bank accounts and depleting from the company that's supposed to be jointly held. He's depleting its funds. An investment unbeknownst to her had been made to a car dealership. She's finding out all this stuff because
Mhm.
she is involved in the businesses.
Mhm.
Then she starts looking around.
And they had a good sit down and heart to heart after this, or what happened?
Well, I don't know. Let me get to that part. He was regularly lying about amounts owed on company taxes.
Uh-huh.
He was directing proceeds from the sale of joint personal properties into Company 4 to cover higher amounts. He was paying all of Company 4's expenses with cashier's checks that couldn't be traced.
Mhm.
I mean, it sounds a lot like this Brown
Mhm.
divorce. I mean, this guy is a master.
He had a lot. Well, yeah. I mean, this is an astute businessman, and when you start attacking their authority and their control, and sort of that testosterone starts to sort of increase, and they're mad that their masculinity is being, I guess attacked, and particularly against the person that they feel like they've given everything for and had their children. how dare they disrespect me like this? Now it's game on war.
Yeah.
That's why it's really hard to make those things work again, unless when they get back together, there's a lot. The lawyers have split it up so that the wife is protected, and building trust again after that is the key.
Right.
And apparently, this did not happen.
Right. And so when she discovers this, she says, okay, look, I'm going to give you one more chance and you're going to show me that you care
Fool
about
me.
this.
What's that? Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool
Okay,
me
I always
twice,
get that
shame on
wrong.
me.
But whatever happened,
It's
she
the
did not follow
opposite.
that rule.
No, she gave him a chance and she said, what I want
Chance
you to
10.
do, well, and this was the chance, and reverse the property deed transfers. I
Uh-huh.
want you to put everything back in my name that you've
Okay,
taken
and
away
he
from
did
me.
or did not do that?
No, he
Of
didn't.
course he
do it.
didn't.
Mm-mm.
I was going to say this, and then what? She went forward with the divorce at that point.
So then she files for divorce
Mhm.
again in Texas.
Mhm.
Now, here's the kicker to me, and I see this a lot, is she took some money from, it says right here on what I'm reading, $3,000, but I think it was more like $30,000,
Mm-hmm.
some money from a joint account.
Mm-hmm.
And, now she's terrible because to pay for a divorce. Oh, it's terrible to live on and pay for a divorce.
Do you know how many women I know, and we're talking about the bad party in the divorce, have gone through, when I'm representing the guy, they've gone through and wiped out the accounts and get in no trouble because it's community? I mean, that's pretty much, they don't get any trouble.
With emphasis on they don't get in any trouble because it's
It's
community.
community, yeah.
But see, then they're these people that do that, they're being threatened by opposing counsel. And
Oh,
I believe
what?
that there was even eventually the Montgomery Family Law Court issued temporary orders to keep her and her daughter together in the family home, removed him from the house, and grant him again sole management of Company 4.
Mhm.
He immediately
Against
filed.
sole management. So now they're jointly managing it.
No, he got sole management from a court. Again. We're about to have to take a break, but I just want to wrap this up. He immediately filed assault and elder abuse charges on her, followed by theft
I
of
guess he's
company
elderly.
funds.
What is he, 55?
And he's 20 years older than she
Yeah,
is.
but how old is he? Any
He's
idea?
70 something.
Well, that's kind of elderly.
And
Not
a
too far from us,
motion
though.
and a motion for enforcement. He claimed he needed to protect his company from her personal spending and her excessive laziness and sitting around and all of that. So, that is, then he began to recruit witnesses from their neighbors and friends to say how
Ugh.
terrible she was and all of that. Now, this is a good mom that's got great kids, never any issues, and now she's being
Why, God said
accused of all
we
of
are many
this.
parts, we're all one body. Why can't we just live this comfortably and happy? And
Because that's not their goal. So we're going to take a quick break.
All their goal is
Yeah.
hatred and
We're
horrid
gonna, we're
war.
gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue with this story, and then we'll take some questions from our listeners.
Did you know there are more than 790 abused and neglected children currently in foster care in Montgomery County? Will you help make a difference? I'm Allie Stevens with Casa Child Advocates of Montgomery County. We train and support volunteers to be the voice of children in the foster care system. Kids removed from their home because of abuse and neglect, and we need volunteers just like you to advocate for these children. To learn more about becoming an advocate, please visit CasaSpeaksForKids.com. That's CasaSpeaksForKids.com.
The Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service has been dedicated to educating Texans for over a century. In 1915, the Extension Program was established under the federal Smith-Lever Act to deliver university knowledge and agricultural research findings directly to the people. Ever since, AgriLife Extension programs have addressed the emerging issues of the day, serving diverse populations across the state. Texans turn to Extension for solutions in horticulture, agriculture, 4-H and youth, and family and consumer sciences. Extension agents respond not only with answers, but also with resources and services that result in significant returns on investment to boost the economy. Join us Fridays at 1 o'clock for the AgriLife Extension Hour.
Our talk shows and music shows are looking for sponsors. Want to expand your brand awareness? Reach the hyperlocal audience in Montgomery County? Lone Star Community Radio sponsorships accomplish this. Want to see our stats and rates? Check out ourlonestar.com/sponsor for more information. Or call in and leave us a message at 936-647-3776 with your questions. Get seen on TV, YouTube, and heard on our podcast, FM, and internet radio. Support your local radio station with Lone Star Community Radio.
What can the Better Living for Texans program do for you? You can learn how to increase your consumption of fruits and vegetables, choose foods that are relatively inexpensive and good to eat, make your food dollars last longer, prepare quick, nutritious meals, help your children learn how to eat healthier snacks, and much more. Our program is committed to helping people like you improve your health through providing research-based nutrition education in a friendly, cost-free, and relaxed environment. We are Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, helping Texans make their lives better.
Hey guys, this is Connor.
This is Dick.
This is Chris.
And we're with the Ticket Stub Podcast every Thursday live at noon on 104.5 and 106.1 FM in the Conroe area. Also, anytime at irlonestar.com. You go to irlonestar.com/TTS. You can find all of our social media.
And don't forget, we give away 2 tickets to the Grand Theater on every show.
If you like movies and you like complaining or celebrating anything that has to do with the silver screen, check out the Ticket Stub Podcast and join us every Thursday at noon o'clock on Lone Star Community Radio.
A Lone Star Community Radio is looking for those who are interested in hosting their own talk show with monthly and weekly slots available on Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and on irlonestar.com. Start your own podcast, create your first YouTube channel, and be on TV. Contact Lone Star Community Radio online at irlonestar.com or call the station message line at 936-647-3776 to take your first step into the radio world.
Welcome back to the Legal Connection with Tony and Cheryl. Tony and I are here today talking about divorce in Texas and some complicated issues. Hey, listen, if you guys want to send us a question, why don't you go to the Legal Connection Show on Facebook and Facebook message us a question. Now, you won't be confidential if you do that. If you want to remain anonymous, you can email your questions to questions@legalconnectionshow.com. All right, so send us your questions on Facebook Messenger. Facebook message us on our website, The Legal Connection Show. So we've been talking about,
This particular case is very similar to a lot of cases, and it goes both ways. There's men that also have the wives that are, make all the money or make the majority of it, or for whatever reason, were set up in a way that they could establish sort of a separate entity in a corporate or LLC or partnership that prevented the other spouse from having access to those funds. And yes, the other spouse is probably doing the toil, labor, sweat, toil, the whole thing, helping keep the family together. They have kids. And what do you do in those situations? Well, to answer one of our listener questions is about what kind of support, and it would also apply to this case, this example that you gave us. How can you get support? How can you survive when the other party has got control over all the funds? And one of the questions that we get in Texas a lot is about alimony. And when I went to law school, alimony was, didn't even exist in Texas. And now it really doesn't as a defined legal term, but it is actually in the statutes. So we're going to talk about the three ways that you can actually at least stay afloat while you're going through a divorce until you can start actually making the claims that you need to for a true and just division of the assets. We're not talking about what happens in divorce, because divorce is actually just the custody of the children, the amount of child support the person that has the primary custody is going to get, and the division of assets. That's all divorce is. But here we've got a situation where that is not uncommon,
They're business
where
partners.
both parties have now gone as low as you can go. They are going and they're actually filing false criminal charges against the other to get leverage in the divorce.
Right.
This is so common. Oh, he assaulted me. Oh, elder abuse. Oh, theft. You had kids together. You
Right.
chose this party, which makes us insane as attorneys. It's like, you want me to be a plumber and dig you out of the crap you got yourself into?
Yeah.
When this is who you chose, you know this person much better than I do. and you're surprised they're acting like this after
Yeah.
so many years. This is not a surprise, people. You should be protecting yourself all along if you find that there's not trust. Now, on the other hand, if you've always trusted your spouse, and I completely and thoroughly in all ways trust my beloved spouse. There's no reason for me, although as an attorney I should, to protect myself, because he's never done anything that would make me believe that he would do anything to hurt me. Okay, so and hurt anyone else. He's completely trustworthy in every way. But when you start seeing those little cracks being created, then you need to start protecting yourself. And you're not going to go to the fox that's in front of the hen house and say,
Right.
by the way, I think that you're, killing chickens or whatever you're doing. You need to kind of quietly, because you might be wrong and you don't want to create a problem. You want to quietly sort of collect information like you should when trust issues arise. Because what if you're wrong and you improperly accuse somebody of a trust issue? Now you've created an issue. So, it's kind of, it's difficult. But this woman knew this guy for 4 years or 5 years before she married him. She knew what she was getting into.
Well, and also, it wasn't just suspicions at this point. She knew he had been moving funds.
Right,
She
right.
knew he had been.
And so at that
changing
point, why
property
wasn't she
names.
protecting herself
Well,
quietly without funds? Well, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, but this was back when they were in Texas.
Mhm.
They hadn't started the divorce proceedings yet. So say you find out for sure, there's no doubt that
You see your spouse doing this, then you are going to start socking away money into a little account on your own.
That's right.
Before a rainy day, because
right.
and it doesn't have to be that way. You could use it again for something else and give it back, but you've got to at least protect yourself when you see this happening.
Mhm.
Because if your spouse says, "Oh, I just lost this jewelry," or "Oops, did I just wipe out that account?" Spouses just don't wipe out an account without
Right.
talking to the other spouse first. This
or
is
accidentally give their
this
a
is war.
105-year-old mom
Right. This is
title
war.
to
Right.
property.
So these are signs that are not being acted upon, which makes me think that there maybe again. I always go to church. I don't think there's counseling. I think people just can't believe that the person that they've trusted and have slept with and had kids with can be treating them like this, and they're sort of in denial. But
I think there's a lot of truth to that. There's a lot of denial in these things.
Right.
They go on, and I think these people think I'll just fight with them.
yeah,
I'll
they
accuse
certainly
them.
couldn't be doing this, and then suddenly it's like murder mystery. Okay. So that being said, people tend to use the umbrella of the term alimony, like we were talking about before, and there are actually 3 types of spousal support recognized by Texas state law, and each comes with its own set of requirements and conditions that determine who is eligible and how long they're eligible for. And so here's a basic guide for those 3 types of spousal support. This is what you're going to need through your attorney in order to survive this war, sort of like, aid to the people that are coming over the border, which we're not even going to get into that because that really aggravates me that these people feel like they have a right to be citizens, and they're not citizens. Go
Right.
make some money in your own country or come here legally. Okay, off my soapbox. Temporary spouse support. This type of support is granted by the courts when one spouse is unable to financially support themselves while the divorce is pending. Exactly what we're discussing today. The payment can be made monthly or in a lump sum, but I don't ever suggest a lump sum because people that are used to living behind the hog, they spend all their money at once.
Mhm.
I don't know why they do that, but it seems like recently I ran across a case where the money came in a lump sum, millions of dollars, and then it was gone within 10 months over on, I watched it on TV. It was a football player who's the basketball player that played for, I don't know, somebody in Ohio, and the wife got an insurance payout because the child support was supposed, per the divorce, the child support, he had to have an insurance. Well, right after the divorce, he ends up missing. It was $1 million policy. He's dead. It ultimately ended up that she's in prison because she killed him.
Oh my
But she really
goodness.
just wanted the lump sum payout of the
For
insurance. It was really sad, but some women do that, and she was really evil. And she's in prison now. It took a while to catch her. The purpose of the temporary spouse support is so that the spouse that needs it has the ability to meet their monthly needs. Okay,
Mhm.
and this is not the husband saying, "I'll give you this." This is the court saying,
Ordering it.
"You're going to get this," and it can be enforced. They can't just take it back
Okay,
because they
well,
want to.
so when they don't pay it, how does the court enforce it?
Well, because
That
you,
would be
you can
good
see
for
that
our
it hasn't been
listeners.
paid. It's like child support or any other order.
And he's got to prove he paid it.
Right.
It's
They can't.
not on.
There has to be a real reason they didn't pay it. Like sometimes it's true the husband doesn't have the money to pay the support. It may be outrageous. It may be something that he can't afford, and he just agreed to that, not to go to court, or And a lot of people agreed. A lot of people, I don't know with money or not, but parties will agree to something that is not realistic because they're either being blackmailed or they're trying to they're trying to manipulate the other person. In other words, an example would be this person has got an assault charge that was improperly brought against them, one spouse, and they want the other spouse to drop it. So they're saying, I will give you this support. Maybe you can think about it. Maybe you'll drop it. So they're trying to manipulate them
I have
into
a
dropping
case
it.
just like that
okay?
now.
Or it could be they don't want their information to be put out to the public. I mean, there's a lot of blackmail going on here because intimate people know intimate secrets about each other when they're married. This is
So
why
when
you get married, please
when
trust
the
your spouse.
temporary order for spousal maintenance is violated, you need to get your attorney to file a motion.
Well, usually
for
my clients are like
contempt.
they're on the phone with me or emailing me or texting me like the instant they think it's going to happen,
Oh,
and they
right.
drive me bats. It's like you don't even know if it's going to happen. And you're calling me,
Yeah.
and I take a deep breath, go to mass.
Mhm,
They
yeah.
just need somebody to unload on, and it's you,
It's
meaning the
you.
attorney. Okay, so that being said, that's the temporary spouse support. You get that through the court. I'm going to talk about what the requirements are for that in a minute. There's also something called contractual alimony. This is very different from spousal maintenance, spousal support, as defined in the Texas Family Code.
Mhm.
There's no limit to this. It's an
Mhm.
agreement.
Mhm.
And this type of arrangement is not court ordered, but is instead made by an agreement. Both spouses enter into a payment contract that lays out how much will be paid, how frequently it will be paid, and how long it will be paid. This option allows for more flexibility and is commonly used method to make sure that the lesser earning spouse is cared for until such time as they can get on their feet and begin caring for themselves. But this is just as good as the paper it's written on. It's a contract.
Right.
If you're not trusting the person to begin with,
Mhm.
then why are you going to enter a contract with them again? But
Mhm.
it may be what is the patch that you need in order to sort of get on your feet. So I'm not against it, and there's not any limit. So it's got its good sides. But on the other hand, I say get the court involved if you don't trust your spouse because you need that muscle behind you. Okay, court-ordered post-divorce maintenance. The court may also award periodic post-divorce spousal maintenance to a party. The eligibility for maintenance is strict. In order to be granted spousal maintenance after the divorce has been finalized, the requesting spouse must prove that after the divorce, the requesting party will lack sufficient properly to provide for that spouse's minimum reasonable needs, or any one of the following. I'm going to give you a list. The other spouse is guilty of family violence within 2 years before the divorce or while the suit is pending. You can get post-divorce spousal maintenance. Now, this one I don't like because a lot of times the wife, and it's usually the wife, I hate to say it, will make up a story that they have been abused when they've usually started a fight and they've called the police, and then they make up that they've been hurt. I see it so many times. It's very aggravating. And the husband doesn't want to go to court because he may have a license, an engineering license, some kind of license that they're afraid
plumbing
may be
license, a physician's
affected,
license.
anything by this family
Mhm.
violence. And they don't want that
Mhm.
on their record. So they're willing to settle and say, I did it just to keep the peace.
Well, I
And in
see
turn,
it
it
when
gets
they've
used against them.
Yeah, I see it when they've actually been beaten up and beaten up over and over. The women or my
Right.
clients, whoever they are.
Well, it could, and the reverse of that is it actually did happen, and they really do need the spousal support. But
Mhm.
I'm seeing it from the vantage point as I'm a criminal defense attorney, and I see many, many times they use it as leverage, and it's not real. It's a lie.
Yeah.
They're just saying that to get some leverage in court, and it really bothers me. On the other hand, if your relationship is that bad
Mhm.
that you didn't see this coming and you got to call the police, then truly we've had these shows on this before, domestic violence. Get out
Mhm.
and then and get some help, but do not even be around this person because they need anger management. Obviously, if they're beating you and you weren't the catalyst for it. That being said, though, that's one of the reasons that you can get post-divorce spousal support
Because it's
by
not
the courts.
favored. It's not favored in Texas. Post-divorce spousal
No,
maintenance.
no,
is
we're going to
not
get into that in a
favored.
minute. It's totally not.
But when there's domestic violence, you can get it every time.
Yeah, and a lot of women know this. They are the queens of this, and it
Well,
kinda
they need
bothers
to
me.
know it. They need to know it.
They need to know it if it's really happening. But you know what? If you're in a situation where you married somebody knowing that they had these sort of
Doesn't mean they
these-
should be beating you
they
up.
shouldn't be beating them. You shouldn't have married them to begin with, and you weren't going to change them. So if you are dating somebody that's got a tendency to hit you even playfully,
Yes,
don't
get out.
unless you like that kind of thing. Get out of the relationship. That's stupid. They need some counseling.
Yeah.
No man should ever lay hands on a woman under any circumstance.
Yeah.
Any circumstance. I don't even care if she pulls a gun on you. Man, you get out. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the requesting spouse has a disability. You can also get spousal support for that. All right, which prevents them from getting gainful employment. All right. The requesting spouse is the primary caregiver of a child from the marriage who has a mental or physical disability that prevents the caregiver from working enough to earn sufficient
Right.
income. All right. And it has to be a child of the marriage. It can't be one that
Mhm.
was brought in one way or the other. The requesting spouse spent the duration of time that the divorce was pending actively seeking gainful employment, attempting to learn skills that would lead to gainful employment, and failed to find any employment. They have to be trying. You can't just get spousal support and just be sitting back eating bonbons on the couch. It's not
You
going to
know,
work.
even if you're trying, though, I think it's a really high hurdle to get a judge to give you spousal maintenance just based on that.
Right. And that's why a lot of people go to contract alimony. But a lot of people need it for the exact same situation that we're in right now. They have a certain lifestyle. They're living in a house that they can't even pay the rent on, or not the rent, but the
water
maintenance
gets
on.
turned off.
Because it's such a large house and they've got
Mhm.
kids and they're trying to support them. And then you've got somebody that's controlling all the income that you can't. This is the kind of situation where you really would get it based on these circumstances. So present those facts. The last thing is the requesting spouse is married to the other spouse for 10 years or longer and lacks the ability to earn sufficient income to provide that spouse's minimal reasonable needs. That's how you're going to get temporary spouse support. Now, there's a number of ways that they calculate this, and it goes toward the financial situation of both spouses, whether or not the spouse acted as the homemaker, which is in many cases, you've got an older spouse that's acting as the homemaker at home. They're going to get temporary spouse support many, many times, and actual post-divorce spouse support. The age, employment history, education, health, and earning ability of the requesting spouse, the ability of this paying spouse to provide for their own needs, any spousal violence, and the list goes on and on. Now, this is important. Texas law puts a limitation on the maximum amount that can be awarded in spousal maintenance. This is not contractual alimony.
$500.
The amount awarded must not exceed the lower value of $5,000 or 20% of the paying spouse's gross income. So that's the limit when you're talking spousal support as opposed to contractual alimony.
Right.
So that's why a lot of people will go to contractual alimony because you can get a lot more, but it doesn't have any teeth. You
Well, you
can't
have to
enforce
be
it.
dealing with very reasonable parties to do the contractual alimony part. So we've got 1 minute here.
For the whole show?
Uh-huh. Yeah, we've got
Yes.
1 minute. But, what I want to talk about is what do you do if you've been awarded temporary spousal maintenance or a post-divorce spousal maintenance, spousal
In an
support?
order, not the contractual
In an
alimony
order.
contract.
In
Then
an
you
order.
can go to court and you can get an enforcement action, and they have to pay your attorney's fees for that. It's actually something you can go to court and say they were in contempt for not having this divorce. I do want to say that if there are many, many different claims that a party can file in order to get reimbursed for their part, like the example we had, they can. The case that I would go to would be if you want to go to the Rachel and Michael Brown case in Harris County, and the case number is 2011-01272. That petition is 70 pages long. It gives you a litany of claims for reimbursement for when there was fraud, for when they were trying to move the shell game of the properties around. Go just take a look at it. It'll give you some ideas and some hope.
Okay, great. Thank you for listening. Remember to
Serve God by serving others. And women, go to church if you're having problems like that. God has all the answers.
Yeah, send us your questions.
Prayer.
And we will, maybe we'll talk about this again next week, but we'll be here again next week from 12 to 1.